Welcome to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, a program for and about women. Joyce Buford is a certified coach who has a passion for helping women who need a second wind. Joyce is the creator of Uncover Your Hidden Genius, a program that will help you live a life of greater purpose, fulfillment, and ease. As a certified coach, she studied directly with her mentor, Jack Canfield, author of the Chicken Soup book series, where she served as an assistant to his training program. Through her study with many prestigious coaches and mentors, she has created a powerful program that has positively impacted hundreds of people. On today's program, Joyce and her guest will help you learn how to get your second wind. Now here's our host, Joyce Buford.
Good morning. Welcome to Second Wind. I'm excited about this recording or this program in which we are recording early, but so that she can be heard on Tuesday when we are normally published. But I want to tell you about this dynamic woman. Now, how do I find the interviews that I ask on my show? They're usually women, and I'd say 85% of them are women, because that is what we are about, second wind with women. And so I was attending a workshop in California, and this was a Brendan Burchard workshop, and there was approximately, I would say, about 1,000 people there. And there, when I got in line to go into the conference room, there was this dynamic woman standing over, and I sort of watched her. She's very attractive, but she also eludes a lot of confidence, and she's a very bright spirit. And so I know by the time she left that conference that she knew everybody by their first name. You know that person, one that's so magnetic that people are drawn to her as well as they love being around her. Well, that is our guest today. And when I asked her to be on the show, she was willing to do that. And so her name is Keanue. And Keanue is a Texas lady, Keanue Frantz. Frantz? Keanue, you'll have to correct me. Frantz?
It's either France or France. It's a German name, so it's however you choose to pronounce it. Most people say France.
France? That's because we're in Texas.
Exactly.
But anyway, she is a Texas woman that has mastered the art of transition. Now, after a successful career in the Air Force, she is now living her life as a certified high-performance coach, where she helps women navigate life on their own terms. I love that. As an Air Force veteran, she has worn several hats in life. She has been married and divorced 2 times, she said to me this morning, worked as an employee and an entrepreneur, has suffered loss and gain, faced failure and experienced success, survived tragedy, and found triumph. With her elevated alignment coaching program, she helps women create new lives in shorter time with greater success and happiness. So welcome, Keanue, to the show today. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm all just floored by your description of me. I had no idea that you were watching me and that you saw me in that light. So thank you so much. I sound amazing. That's all. I just need you to go with me and introduce me to everyone. I want you. Well, who am I? Go ahead, Joyce. Tell them who I am. That was an amazing introduction. I am so honored to be here with you today, especially because your show is about women, and we're women, and I love women. So I'm really honored that you would have me on.
Yes.
How were your holidays?
Well, I tell no lies here, okay? So one of the things that sets you apart is you have this magnificent turban on your head, and it was so eye-catching and so beautiful with your face that You couldn't be passed, my dear. You just couldn't. I mean, it was just wonderful to see how everybody interacted with you. Yes, I'm like the little person that stands over on the side and kind of watches, you know. But
well, when you watch, you see more.
But I watch. But I also interacted with you because I sat behind you in the conference. And so anyway, we were constantly doing activities together and just enjoying the conference. So anyway, I'm delighted that you're here. And one of the things that shocks me, I guess I'm always kind of interested in how a woman makes the decision to go into the Air Force. What was really one of the reasons that drew you to that?
Well, I didn't go to college after high school, and I joined the Air Force because it was an opportunity to become a bioenvironmental engineer. And to me, at that point, that was like something I could only dream of. And to me, it was just a much better life than I would have just with my high school diploma.
Yes.
And I really enjoyed it. Being a bioenvironmental engineer, I'll give you a little bit about that. It is kind of like the military equivalent to the EPA and OSHA, all wrapped up into one.
Okay. All right. So you didn't have the opportunity to go to school, and this was a way to grow and experience new things. Did you get to see much of the world, or were you primarily in the States? Which that's part of the world.
When I traveled with the Air Force, while I was active duty, I traveled, mainly in the U.S., but my job, because I was creating a program called the Stormwater Sampling Program to make sure that the emissions that were leaving the bases during storms weren't going into the communities, polluting the ground and the water and things like that. So I did a lot of stormwater sampling. So it took me nationwide. I would probably be gone from my home about 2 weeks out of a month, every month during rainy seasons throughout the U.S.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of fascinating, interesting parts of the U.S. to see. I'm constantly reminded of how beautiful America is, and sometimes, definitely now that we've become more world focused, we kind of think it's outside of us, but there is such beauty inside America that we sometimes miss it because we're looking elsewhere for it. But anyway, that's my plug for America.
I like the way you did that, though, because that's what we do with our lives.
Yeah.
We look, how you're saying we look outside. As women, I think sometimes we look outside of ourselves for that thing that we're missing. That happiness or that joy or that, to me more so, I just noticed that a lot of women are looking for validation.
Right.
And they look outside for that.
Right. Yes. I know. I kind of think it's because it starts very early in our lives where we develop that habit of looking outside of ourselves for validation, as you said, but it's also part of that marriage dream that we have that, Cinderella sold us all on that. We think when we get married, we're finding answers to whatever bothers us. And as you have shared with me before, that's not exactly what happens. And I think that's part of your message that you do in your coaching program. Correct?
Right. And it's true. When we, marriage is like that, when I get married, everything will be fine, because there'll be somebody that's going to love me. And, love is everything. When we have love, we think that it's going to be everything. And sometimes that's just not the case, because sometimes what we're looking for is inside of us. And that's where I think we get hung up, is because we don't realize how responsible we are for our lives.
Do you think we're doing any better as mothers and daddies teaching our children that?
I think we're doing better in some places and in other places not. And why I say that the other places not, let's start there first, is that everyone gets a trophy. That's not life. We're not all going to win. And I think when we do that, we put our children in a deficit because now they don't know how to handle not winning. And now they don't know how to handle not getting what they want. And we see, bad behavior from adults that, okay, your order was not ready on time. Surely it's not worth you having this amazing outburst because there were some unforeseen circumstances that didn't get things when you needed it. But so I think that's where we're doing a disservice. But I think for us to be doing better, I believe that since a lot more people are looking at the way they want that, like the way they want their children to grow up, not so much for the career, not so much for the tangibles, but those intangibles. I think we're starting to imbue character in our children now more so than it was a conscious effort back when I was coming up, because I think when I was coming up, love looked like the bills being paid and food being on the table.
Yeah.
My parents didn't have time to talk to me about love and accepting myself and those things because they were busy making a living so that I could live.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yes, that generation was far more into providing the necessities of life, the food and all of that, than they were the inner game, the completeness
right, because
and
it was
it was
that, well, it was good enough for me, it's good enough for you, this is the way life looks. But I think with exposure, we start to realize that no, life doesn't necessarily have to look this way.
Right, yeah. Well, I have to go back because I'm still fascinated. I want to talk more about this, but what was something that you can say that your experience, because we build on experiences, and you made that decision to go into the Air Force. So I'm kind of pulling us back to that because I want to know, what was your greatest benefit from making that decision? How did you see yourself grow? You've already said you got the education, but did you see yourself growing internally from that experience?
Yes. I recognized my strength.
Yeah.
I recognized that I was made of more than I thought I was. A lot of it starts with basic training. It's intentionally hard. Now, granted, Air Force basic training is considered probably from other branches. They're like, oh, that's summer camp. But if you're not used to running a mile and a half every day, if you're not used to getting up at 5 a.m., if you're not used to all of these things, it's like, man, I can't do that, and it helps you recognize your inner strength in basic training because you become stronger physically because you're doing things that you aren't used to doing every day. And I was an athlete, but I still wasn't used to doing those things every day. And it also makes you mentally stronger because there's, a large degree of discipline you have to demonstrate just with your, governing your physical body. If it's raining and you're standing in formation, you're not allowed to wipe the rain off of your glasses so you can ski. You can't move. Right. You can't move without permission. So there's a lot of governance there. When it's hot and sweat down your back, you can't scratch. You have to stand in that position. So, you learn to be mentally strong. You learn to overlook those physical inconveniences or those physical discomforts because you are not allowed to answer to those. So it definitely strengthened me physically to realize that I'm capable of more. And that's a phrase that kind of stuck with me. And I'll say for the remainder of my life is I'm capable of more. Because one night I was thinking, I can't do this. This is just ridiculous. It's not necessary for me to go through all of this just to get a job. And I was praying. I'm a believer. And, I was like, Jesus, just help me through the next couple of weeks because this is not my thing. And it wasn't, any voice but mine in my head. It sounded like me. And that phrase came to me, you're capable of more. And from that point on, whenever I face anything that I just feel like it's tearing me down or killing me, and it's just like, I'm not going to be able to do this, I always reach into that. I'm capable of more.
Oh my. Yeah, it's seldom that we put ourselves in such extreme changes, because I would doubt anybody goes into one of the services fully understanding what they have just committed to. Would you agree?
Oh, exactly. And I went during peace. I went before Desert Storm. So when the war broke out, there was a look of panic on so many faces, because a lot of people joined the military so they could get money to go to college.
Yes.
So they could, some were homeless. There were people that joined the military for a myriad of reasons, but none of them from the people that I joined the military with were, I'm joining the military so I can go to war, because there hadn't been a war since Vietnam.
Yes. Right.
So that was a shock for many people. And, we really had to, come to grips with the military is a war machine. Now, there are all these other benefits as to why we joined, but our goal is we are created for war. So that was a major transition with people that I knew, and a shift in myself, because at the time my mother and my stepfather were in the Army.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, so if we all go to war, who's at home waiting for everyone to come back? So it's like, man, we're, so I was like, I wouldn't even know if they died, because there was no big computers or, we were still doing things by mail.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting time.
Yeah. How many years were you in the service?
I stayed in the Air Force just shy, like 3 weeks shy of 8 years.
Yeah. That's a very long time. Well, okay. Now, so all the experiences that you went through, all the learning new habits and moving through the routine and building self-confidence and all that, would you recommend that to another woman that finds herself in sort of the situation where you were? Was it a growing
yes, the military is an option. It definitely is an option.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me, it would have to be if you think that's your path. And the only reason I say this is because now there's the possibility of you deploying and going to war and witnessing atrocities or being part of an atrocity. So that's the only reason I would say, is that what you want? Because there are all these other opportunities, but there's also the very strong possibility that you will be in a war zone or doing wartime activities. So that's that's a variable that needs to be taken into consideration.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I really hadn't thought about that. Yeah, that's a pretty good point. So how do you see that the Air Force has prepared you for going into what you've chosen, which is personal coaching?
I would say the Air Force prepared me for that just with the experiences that I had in the military that required me to change internally in a way I never thought I would have to change, in ways that I never saw coming. But those experiences helped to shape the next 27, 28 years of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've been out how long?
I've been out since 1997.
Oh, okay. Yes. So you've had some years to develop. And why did you develop into the coaching? What was it that called you?
I found that, I want to say coaching found me.
It usually does that.
I found that I was the person that people turned to when they needed to create solutions.
Yes.
Or when they needed someone to hold that mirror up to themselves and help them see themselves.
Yeah.
And I use the term help them see themselves because I think sometimes our situations or the situations we find ourselves in, we start to define ourselves by the situations we're in. And that's not always true.
Right.
You know, because we'll start to see ourselves through the lens of the people we're around, but we don't know that their lenses are dirty.
Right. Yeah. I know for my story, it was more about in my own healing after my divorce, which was one of the major disappointments of my life, going through that and trying to find out what happened, how did it happen, what was the situation, how was I going to rebuild my life. In doing that, when I was trying to help myself, when I started by sitting next to a woman at a retreat, and she said, I'm having this workshop in Austin. It's called Get Out of Your Own Way. And so it just fit me so perfectly. And I said, okay, I'm going. And then I found myself there. She was a big follower of Jack Canfield, who wrote the Chicken Soup book series and is a tremendous teacher. And I just began to follow him. So, and then it gradually grew into, I want to help other women do this. So right. I'm thinking that might be your story, that we have to start someplace.
Right, so, and it started with just my experiences and, for lack of a better term, women referring other women to me.
Yes.
Saying, hey, you know what, Keanue has gone through that. Let me get you in touch with my girlfriend and she'll be able to tell you, some of the things that work for her. And that's the thing. I just started out saying, hey, this is what worked for me.
Yeah.
But these are also some things I tried. Because I didn't feel like I had all of the answers. I can only tell you what worked for me and other things that I've tried, because some of those other things might be what worked for you. Mm-hmm. And that's how I found myself in that arena. And I really started to look at what do all of the women that I help have in common. Yeah. And it's usually either they're in transition, they're trying to transform their lives, or they're trying to empower themselves. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, transition just does sort of mean wobbly. I don't know how else to describe that, but you're not on steady ground. You're kind of looking for some stability. Now, you shared with me that you experienced 2 divorces. 2 marriages or 2 divorces?
2 marriages.
2 marriages. And so you're presently in a marriage.
Well, we're not together.
Oh, you're not
We're
together.
Waiting for the final paperwork.
Yeah. So do you find that you support women more about their transition of the divorce? Or is it their loss of a job? Or what exactly is their most of the questions that come to you? Is it about their own self-esteem, or is it about the relationship, or what is it?
That's so interesting that you asked, because now that you say it, it's all of the above. I have women that are in the military, that are retiring, that I've, been friends with for years, that are learning how to live with an empty nest. And that's a major transition. Yes. I have widows that I served with their husbands, or their husbands were good friends of mine, and now they're trying to figure out, wow, my life is still the same, but everything is different because I don't have my husband, So there's that group. And then there are women that have PTSD that I help learn to navigate life and claim the power that they have left in their life to create a new life for themselves. And of course, there are my women that are coming out of a divorce, or women that are just coming out of bad relationships. So I don't have one group of women that come to me. And I guess it's because all of those experiences, with the exception of being a widow, all of those experiences are things that I have experience in.
Yeah, right.
So it just depends on which person refers you to me as to what position, where you're coming from in, in your life.
Yeah.
Because at first I wanted to only work with women that had PTSD. Then I only wanted to work with women that were becoming entrepreneurs. But I couldn't. My program was helping all of them, and I really felt like I would be doing a disservice to say I'm only going to work with women that are transitioning from corporate America to becoming an entrepreneur, or women that are transitioning from, being a mom, soccer mom, to an empty nest.
Yeah. Well,
it didn't work out.
It's really advocated you start small, very focused, and then what happens is that it ends up growing because your coaching practice really helps more than just one, and there are a lot of similarities in the different transitions that one goes through. So it only makes sense that you would have multiple types of situations. We're going to go shortly to a break, but I do want to highlight that on your website, and what is your website? It's
Keanue.com, right?
Keanue.com.
Yeah.
Now, we spell that KEANUE.com. And I went to your website this morning and found all of your programs, and it was so interesting to see. I particularly liked about the vlog and the Facebook show because I saw a familiar face or two there. And so anyway, I stopped along the way to visit with our friend, to hear our friend, but I also noticed you did talk about PTSD. So when we come back, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of those programs that you have on your program called Conversations with Keanue. So when we come back, let's spend some time talking about that, a little bit about PTSD, if you will, and you share with us that you've experienced that as well. So we're going to take a brief break here, and when we come back, we'll be continuing to talk with Keanue.
Transformational coach, motivational speaker, and author Joyce Buford returns after this short break.
Would you like to know how to bring more ease to all the decisions you need to make in life? Knowing your core values is the first step in Joyce's free live masterclass. You'll discover your top 5 core values in as little as 45 minutes. Join her now at freegiftfromjoyce.com. Close your eyes and imagine living your life without limits. Where would you go? Who would you meet? What would you do? During an Uncover Your Hidden Genius session, you will discover what's keeping you from living your life with purpose, passion, and fulfillment of your potential. You'll get a clear vision of the steps you need to take to uncover your hidden genius so that you can live a life without limits. Sessions can be done over the phone, Skype, or in person. Find out more at www.joycebufordempowers.com or by calling 903-287-0747.
Welcome back to this segment of Second Wind. Joyce Buford, the creator of Uncover Your Hidden Genius, continues in this segment to share insight that will help you live a life of greater purpose, fulfillment, and ease. Now here's our host, author and coach, Joyce Buford.
Welcome back. We are so glad you're with us today, and we are talking with the fabulous Keanue,
like Keanu Reeves.
I know it. How many times have you told me that? Several.
It's one of those names. No worries.
All right. So anyway, she is sharing with us, and I've just told you about her website, which is sincerely, Keanue, Keanue.com. And I'd like for you all to go to that website because you're going to see the many facets of Keanue and see what she's doing with her practice. She has a one-on-one practice. She has a group coaching practice. And she has, you have a third thing. Is it right?
I have workshops, but I don't know that they're on the website. I'm learning how to do that website.
Yeah.
So, but I have an individual practice. I have group coaching group coaching, and I also host workshops, quarterly workshops where it's part of my elevated alignment program where I help women align with their true values, create and set goals, and then we have accountability for. I like to have them for an entire year, so every 90 days we deal with each other on, tweaking what's happening. But it's usually a 90-day program.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, but there was another thing that I really enjoyed that I did mention before break that I wanted to kind of talk with you a little bit. You also do weekly vlogs, and you do a Facebook show called Conversations with Keanue.
Yes, I have Conversations with Keanue, and that is a weekly show where I highlight different individuals that are helping people strengthen themselves, or what's the other word I like to use? Helping you to grow forward.
Yes.
Well, and I meet individuals in many different situations, and I try to have interviews with them, and then other times I'll just have a conversation that needs to be had, and we'll just have a conversation as well.
Right. Well, I did notice that you have a common friend of both of us, Satori Matu. Is that how he pronounces his name?
Satori Mateo, yes. Yes, Satori Mateo, he's amazing.
That's a wonderful. I'm going to go back and listen to that. But in looking at this site, I also noticed that you have an article here on the face of PTSD. So tell us a little bit about your work, because you start off saying, I have had PTSD. Right?
Yes.
Or no?
PTSD, I think that might have been one of the first blogs I put up. And PTSD has a stigma. It is a mental illness, and it has a stigma attached to it that a lot of times the images that come to a person's mind when they think of PTSD is automatically somebody that's been to war. And, sometimes they're thinking of the angry outbursts, because a lot of times when we hear PTSD in the news, we hear that someone has injured someone or killed someone, and well, that person has PTSD, and so they weren't in control. But PTSD has different faces. Like all of the things that you use to describe me, the most beautiful description I've ever had of myself. And I'm very glad it's recorded, because now I can play it over and over and listen to it.
You're so cute. I'm not kidding.
But I have PTSD, and the person you described doesn't sound like PTSD. But if you watched me, you notice I sat in the same area every day.
Well, so did I.
That's part of my PTSD. I needed to be close to an exit. Yes, I needed to be close to an exit. Now, either I'll sit all the way in the very front, or I'll sit all the way in the very back. Because if I sit all the way in the very front, I'm 3 steps away from the door. So a lot of those things, a lot of the way we move in life, if we have PTSD, is very intentional.
Well, tell us what PTSD is.
You wouldn't think about me having PTSD because I don't look like what PTSD, quote unquote, looks like. Yes.
Keanue, tell us what PTSD means, those letters.
Okay, PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. And what that means is a person has either witnessed an atrocity
been part of some type of trauma that happened to them, experienced some type of trauma, or maybe inadvertently have caused some type of trauma that they cannot move past. There are people, I'll give you the most generic scenario. There are people that can witness a horrible accident and be like, man, I saw this bad accident. And, they may describe it. And then, they're okay because they didn't know anyone in the accident anyway. And there are other people that can witness that same accident. And it caused them to have nightmares and to just keep seeing that scene over and over in their head. And, it causes them to not be able to move past that scenario.
I see. Yeah.
So PTSD to me, my vivid description is like being in a prison without bars. Because from looking out, it's like, well, why are you there? I mean, there are no bars, you can get out. But it's still a prison, and you can't just walk out of it. So a lot of times people back in the Vietnam era, we'd hear about people having flashbacks.
Yes.
And back then I think they called it shell shock.
Yeah.
The VA is an amazing medical facility, so they've done a lot more research in the years that, move forward. And they realize that PTSD is a thing that haunts quite a few military members. And that's when the publicity started to come out to it. But PTSD affects first responders, police officers, firemen, nurses, doctors, people that work in the morgue. A lot of those people will start to develop PTSD because you see some horrific things. People that witness car accidents, these children that are exposed to these shootings at school, children that have been abused in their life. There are a lot of factors that basically PTSD, in the most generic phrases, something happened outside of your control.
Yes.
That you can't move past. That continues to revisit you, or that continues to take you back to that place. People manifest it and they deal with it differently. There's some people that, are angry a lot. There are people that experience depression, anxiety. People become suicidal because they don't feel like they can get out of it. So it manifests itself in a myriad of ways. Sometimes people are very territorial, like they won't go in crowds. They won't go to different places. Now, for me, it took years for me to be able to go to a conference like the one you met me at because it was too many people, too many variables that I couldn't control.
Yes,
a lot of times when people have PTSD, it's about safety, and one of the things that they need to do, to do, one of the things that they do to feel safe, at least what I did, is I tried to control my environment.
By where you sat.
By where I sit, by where I am to an exit, by, the feel of the people. If I'm ever in a situation where I feel uneasy, I'm leaving. I'm not trying to, something's off, but I can't put my finger on it. I don't stick around and try to put my finger on it. But that was a hard place to be because it changed the trajectory of my life because I'm not explaining that, oh man, I just don't feel good about this. It's hard to explain someone why you feel uneasy or why you want to leave.
Yes, I have another coach friend who sits on the first responders on emergency line in Canada, and she also experienced PTSD from some of the trauma that came through the phone of people in
secondary.
Yes. So I am familiar with that. Is there, this is a question you maybe don't have an answer, but is there a figure of how many people come back from or experience PTSD?
When you say how many people come back from, I'm not really
asking that question very well. I want to say the war, but then I also realized that my friend in Canada was just doing her job and experienced PTSD. And so I'm kind of like, well, how can you even put a qualifier on it? Because it's hard to know. It's an unknown.
Well, and that's the thing. What they're doing now, they're targeting career fields that PTSD is prevalent in. Like, they look at career fields that have high suicide rates: first responders, dispatchers, people in the military. That's where they started. That's how the research. I'm going to say, in my opinion, that's probably how the research started. It's like, why are all these people killing themselves? What do they have in common? And they started to look at those things. But now we're starting to realize that there are a myriad of causes, a myriad of things that cause PTSD or that can cause PTSD. Because, like I said, it can be two people that witness the same exact thing. One person develops PTSD and the other person doesn't. It's just how we process information,
right?
You know, and so I don't know that there is a place where you can say this many people have PTSD. Yeah. But I would say the statistics are higher than most people would think. You know, like they used to say, if you're standing in a room with 4 women, 3 of them have probably been inappropriately assaulted.
Yeah.
Or touched. So
well, it's amazing.
That's
you know what I
high.
look at? I have to say this. I think it's amazing when, you know, you look at your life and you experienced PTSD, which is really awful to experience or go through. I have no idea what I'm saying because I haven't gone through it. But from what you say, there's lots of recovery time. There's lots of healing time that goes on here. But look how you have turned and used that situation, that pain, to turn to help other people. I love that. And it's kind of going through it, knowing what other people experience, that you're now being able to turn that into a positive, if you will, or to help other people. So you do offer this as part of your career plan as well, don't you?
Yes. I do, and it's because I feel, for lack of a better word, I feel that I have a responsibility to help others through something that I was able to get through.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, I've always felt that was my calling, is just to help people, which is probably why people would come to me to help to get solutions and things like that, because I'm that person. If you ever go to an event and there's one girl standing behind to help whoever's setting up the event, that's probably me. You know, that's just my nature. I want to help make things easier for other people.
Yeah.
And,
now, where do you live in Texas?
San Antonio.
Oh, okay. Well, I wanted to call you when I was doing a workshop.
Well, wherever you're doing a workshop. Now, Tyler, that's too close to Nacogdoches to me. I don't want to go that far out. My daughter went to SFA, so that's the only reason I know where that's at.
Well, how are other ways that people can get in touch with you? I know your website, and we've said that several times, and also it'll be, it's sincerely with Keanue, Keanue.
.com.
And am I doing that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then also what are the other ways that you communicate with people?
I have
your social medias.
I have a Facebook, and it's sincerely Keanue on Facebook. I'm learning, and I'll give this disclaimer. I'm learning to use the internet more with Facebook and Instagram, but I'm learning. So I'm getting there. It's not a big following yet because I'm learning.
You're a work in progress.
The kids are showing me.
Yes. And do you also do Twitter and LinkedIn?
I have a LinkedIn account. I believe that's sincerely Keanue as well. Let's see. I try to keep everything simple.
Yeah. Can they find all those on your website?
Yes, I believe they can. I believe so. Yes, I believe everything's on my website. Let's see. Let me go back.
Well, all you listeners out there, if you have a question for Keanue, then you need to go to her website, sincerelykeanue.com, and she has all of this information for you there, as well as you're even offering for my listeners free video, correct?
Yes. I'm offering a video on claiming your personal power because really, to me, what we've discussed on the show today is just being able to grow forward. And as women, we give away or negotiate away a lot of our power in everyday decisions. And I have a video that is the 3 steps to claiming your personal power. The video is kind of short, but there are 3 steps that you could really put into place and see, marked change in the way you move throughout the world and the way people respond to you. Claiming that personal power keeps you saying yes to your priorities, and it teaches you healthy no's. And a no for me was something that was hard to do. It was hard for me to say no because I always wanted to help people, but more importantly, I always wanted to please people. So what I found is that I would say yes to someone else's priority, but really I kind of had something I wanted to do, not maybe something I needed to do, but, I wanted to do something else, but, well, this person needs me to do this, so I'm going to go ahead and do that so that, I make them happy.
Right.
And what I say that as women, we often make our lives our priority. And when I say that, I mean our children our priority, or our spouses are our priority, or sometimes even our careers are our priority. And when we make those things a priority, that means we put ourselves on the back burner. So if, say in a relationship, if you're putting your husband or your partner's needs before your own, they'll put their needs before your own, which means your needs are never a priority because you made his needs a priority, he made his needs priority. When do your needs become a priority?
Yeah.
And it starts out as small negotiations or small, where we give away a little bit of our power until we realize that we're just kind of in a position existing as opposed to living and thriving, because pretty much every decision we make down to where we go eat as a family really isn't about what we really want. It's about what everyone else wants.
Right. Yeah. I see so many times in families that it's where the kids want first, and then it's the husband, and then it's me, maybe.
Right, and that's why I end up working with women that have empty nest syndrome, because their entire existence was through serving their children.
Yes.
So now that those children are grown and gone, what do I do now? I don't even know who I am. And I hear that so often. I'm like, well, what do you like to do? I don't even know. What do you mean you don't know? I don't know. Or, I've been so busy doing this that I kind of forgot about me, and I really don't know what I enjoy. So a lot of it is about self-discovery, and that also is about tapping into your personal power.
Yeah.
I try to make transition a time of exploration as opposed to a time of sadness and pain and disappointment, because when we look at, we don't even know what we like, that's a hard thing to say, but it's even more hard to feel.
And I think it's also because of my divorce that I went through and some of the situations that I experienced, and I think you probably experienced them too, is the just having finished the holiday season. One of the saddest things about the holiday season is, of course, the breakup of the family and how all of the family routines get changed. And I find many of my single ladies, either single by divorce or single by death, end up sitting. They don't end up making decisions for themselves and going out and changing and taking action. And it's almost like a calling for me at Christmas to have that New Year's Eve party that is only my single friends. It's, I'm kind of I protect that a lot because I don't want anybody sitting at home on that festive evening. And that's all out of my own experience. So do you have little triggers like that you experience?
You know what? It's true. I never thought of a New Year's Eve party. I usually spend New Year's Eve in church. Mm-hmm. But I guess because I have a church family and a church life, it didn't really hit me until this year because I didn't go to church this New Year's Eve. I'm like, wow, I'm alone and everyone's out partying somewhere, out having a good time, out socializing, you know what I mean? And it is those times when you have those milestones like the holidays and special times where you turn and there's no one to share it with, that it kind of hits you how much you gave your life away. And when we can live there, we can stay there, we can roll over and revel and wallow in how we've done ourselves a disservice. But I take it personally, and I make it a personal mission to help my client come out of that and say, okay, let's accept that. Let's go ahead and accept, yes, you did give it away. Now, let's take some action. Let's take some decisive action so that you don't, first of all, some actions to stop that habit, because if you've done it for a long time, it's there's a muscle memory there. It's just your first instinct. Yeah. So let's take some action, first of all, to change those habits. Secondly, let's explore. Let's explore everything you ever thought you wanted to do. And figure out what that is that makes you thrive. One of the things I learned in my relationships is that I'm an affectionate person. Mm-hmm. But because of some of the things that had happened in my life, I married someone that was really not affectionate. Yeah. And I thought it was okay because I really, really liked him. And I'm like, the big deal. He doesn't like to hold hands. That's not really a big deal. Okay, he's not really much of a hugger. So what? All of these other great things are perfect. However, I just relegated myself, if I'm going to go with the whole Jeff Dewey Park thing, I relegated myself to the rest of my life. Right. Of not really holding hands, or not really having hugs without, hugs. Okay, can I have a hug? Where it's not, where it's a natural thing. Yeah. And
do you realize how many hugs we need to have every day?
I talk to them about that. Say again?
Do you realize how many hugs we need to have every day? I've been with somebody that says it's a number like 8 or 15 or something, and I fall short a lot of days. You need that touching.
Right. And that's the thing, human contact, that's a real basic need, but a lot of us negotiate. I negotiated that away because it didn't seem like a big thing at the time, because I'm like, okay, I wanted somebody that's financially secure. Okay, he's financially secure. I wanted someone that had a strong family, belief about family. Okay, he had that. He had a bunch of other checks. So the fact that he didn't like to hold hands and he wasn't very affectionate, not a big deal. Or so I thought. Yeah. Even though it seems like something small, you have to start to think long term. Do I want to go the rest of my life having to ask somebody to hold my hand or having to ask for a hug? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's those things that we negotiate away that, we can stay there. I mean, like, man, I really just kind of screwed up this many years of my life because I did this and I did that, or he did this and he did that. But, what I try to do with my clients is help them move past that. Let's take some action. Okay, so now you like to hold hands. So that's a deal breaker. If the guy that you meet is not a hand holder or he's not very affectionate, you already know that that's not what you want for the next 15 years.
Yes. Well, truly, the journey are the transitions that we go through in all relationships. I mean, women go through it, but also men go through it. But because my main focus is for the woman, and I know yours is too, is that we are here to really help them make that transition, to find out who they are, to find out their values, to implement those values in their lives. And so it sounds like you not only do that for your women, but you address so many other needs in the community that I'm just happy I know you.
Thank you, Joyce.
And you're not far away, so that's
not far at all.
Not
Texas,
far at
but
all.
Texas is a country on its, of itself.
Yeah. But I want to say thank you very much for sharing yourself today with my audience, because we are coming to the end of the hour. And it's always so rewarding for me to know that I've asked somebody that really gives a good message. And so I encourage all of you listening out there to go to Keanue's website, find out what she's about so that you can reap some of the rewards and the wisdom that she has to offer. So I thank you very much for being on the program today, Keanue.
Thank you so much for having me, and then thank you for sharing your audience with me. Just being able to be here and talk about the things that make women so amazing. I think we are probably God's best creation, but I'm a little biased. I'm a woman.
We are. So, thank you. So, next week, we will again be back to visit. Well, Keanue will be on next week's show. So, Keanue. And so, you will be listening to her, and this recording is what you will be hearing. As usual, I always invite you to come and be with Second Wind with Joyce. Listen to another guest, just as interesting as I found Keanue to be. And I'm so grateful she's here doing her work for you women in transition, for you people that are experiencing PTSD. She's so many facets about her. Thank you for being here. I love having this time with you.
Thank you for having me. You guys have an amazing day.
Joyce Buford returns next week at this same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving support during their transition and are able to reclaim their true purpose and strength. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at